Hey folks, the following is a conversation between myself and Dave Hansen of Your Saltwater Fishing Guide. I've been on Dave's podcast. He's a great guy, an interesting guy. We're kindred spirits from two completely different outdoors world. Dave is very proficient at Southern California fishing, Mexico fishing, lobstering. So this conversation, we talk a lot about that dynamic, right? Our personal feelings on multiple things we enjoy in the outdoor space, but we dive really deep into politics. And there's so many analogies between Dave's world and my hunting world. You guys, the viewership, it doesn't matter if you're hunters, fishermen, all of the political stuff that we talk about in this conversation is going to be relevant to you. He actually talks about some really cool stuff going on with the California sea lion, and it's almost perfectly analogous to what's going on in the Western hunting space with a lot of the different predators, black bears, wolves, grizzly bears. There's so many analogies there, and we try to dive deep into why we're all dealing with these same problems. Why is it that everybody that lives in this world of reality, where yes, humans are a part of the circle of life, why are we all getting attacked from the rest of the population, losing our opportunities, and just kind of shunned from everybody else? When really we're doing what's been around intrinsically in human nature for the vast majority of the time humans have been on this planet. I hope you guys enjoy it. Dave's a pretty funny guy. We had a great time. If you enjoyed this content, do me a huge favor. Subscribe on whatever platform you consume it on. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever works for you guys. Everything else is on my website, pursuitwithcliff.com. Go there and it's going to be very apparent to you that I work my ass off just to not have a real job. All the hunts I guide, all the seminars I put on, all the unique experiences I offer, and the membership site, all the details are there. I'll have some cool new merchandise, shirts, hats, all of that coming out soon in the next couple months. So get on there and subscribe to my email list. I'll put out the details there. But enough with that. Let's get to the episode. Dude, I am pumped to have you, Dave. I know we had an awesome conversation on your podcast, or at least I thought it was awesome from my perspective. I think we're kindred spirits, dude. So we're gonna have a really cool conversation here. But I want everybody to hear your origination story, man. Like your origination story in the fishing slash outdoor space, because I actually caught a clip, and I don't know where it was, Dave, right off the top of my head, but it was you actually talking about your dad, and it was pretty touching, man. So I just give us the brief story how you got into this world.
All right. I've been very blessed, Cliff. I grew up on the end of the San Clemente Pier in San Clemente, California. My father started in the sport fishing industry in 1947, carting fish off the end of the San Clemente Pier when you guys call them back there, you call them head boats. Out here on the West Coast, we call them sport boats. And they're boats that carry anywhere from 20 to 120 people to take them out fishing every day. And my dad used to go down to he was a little boy. All the kids in school would talk about meeting the fishing boats when they would come in the afternoon and get a quarter to wheel the people's fish down the pier. The pier was like
Sure.
a mile long or 3/4 of a mile long. So the kids would load up their wagons and drag the fish down for the fishermen. And my dad thought that was the coolest thing in the world. He took it a step further and started doing it with his bike so he could get 2 wagon loads a day. I mean, that's how he started out when he was 14
En-
years old.
Entrepreneur from the beginning, huh?
Crazy, crazy story. And, stuff like that is what is our backbone. And so then a couple of the guys that ran the fishing boat saw him every day down there, and they asked him one day if he wanted to come out on the boat and go fishing. And he was like, he didn't even know what fishing. That's not what he was there for. He was there for the quarters. He didn't have
Yeah.
a clue. He told the guy, yeah, I'll come on the boat tomorrow. And he gave him a cheeseburger, a candy bar, a soda, and he got to fish all day and then clean the boat when the boat got in. And that was heaven. He felt that he had made it to the big time. And then from there,
Yeah.
just went on and on. Then he went to Korea and was in the war and came back, and he was the youngest captain on the coast at 18 years of age, and started running the boats off the end of the San Clemente Pier back in 40, 950, and then from there he started whale watching 1971. He was the first person to ever take people out whale watching in 1971 off the San Clemente Pier. And then in 71 and a half, he moved his operation to Dana Point Harbor. And we just celebrated the 51st annual Festival of the Whales, the longest running festival in the United States of America. It's pretty crazy. My dad started that in 71 and a half out of Dana Point. And then while he was doing all that, I was growing up.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
I was born in 62 and went out fishing with my dad on the boats when I was 3 years old off the San Clemente Pier. The boats would pull up next to the pier and bang against the pier, and they'd throw 3 or 4 people on at a time. And it was just a spectacular way to grow up. And I remember writing in my little book when I was a little kid in second grade, what do you want to be when you grow up? And all I ever wanted to do was be a captain.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
that it's crazy, man. There's a lot there, Dave, and I think it gives me some color on like just our discussions, like exactly why your thought process is, because dude, I was lucky in the same way. Like not necessarily in the fishing world, but in the hunting world. I was exposed to it as a kid. And what's crazy, and I'm sure we'll dive deep into this, is that like I took my little boy fishing today, man, and yeah, day before yesterday, I took one of my daughters lobster diving. Like this is like a very, it's weird because I'll post up something like, hey, I took my middle daughter lobster diving, and people think it's weird. When I was a kid, dude, every dad took their kid fishing or hunting like that. Like if you didn't do that, you were weird, you know? And it's like I don't want to say sad. It's just like striking to me that literally in one lifetime that's become an abnormal way to grow up, dude. It's like I mean, it's hard for me to even fathom, that's considered an odd way to have a childhood now.
Absolutely, Cliff. Something to think about. My boys are 32 and 30. All right. And
Yeah.
in their fear of influence, they're the only two guys in all their friends, and they got lots of them that know how to change a tire on a car. I mean,
Yeah, dude, it's wild.
I
Well,
can't
what I mean,
comprehend.
yeah, I mean, we're I'm sure we'll go down this path more, man. But like, I just don't understand. I mean, what happened so quickly? I mean, is it just that everybody, like nobody has the time to do it, or I mean, what's your thought on it, man? But give me the short, and then I can give you my perspective on it, because I think it's real relevant to my viewers, man. Because I think a lot of them are in the same boat. I think some of them, they're like, dude, why are all these other people's kids like not doing outdoor stuff? Or people are listening to this, man, and they're like, oh, I wish I was taking my kid fishing. I wish I was taking my kid hunting or whatever.
Well, I'm not trying to sell my website, but I have a website that teaches people how to take people fishing or how to fish or do all that. And there's a
Yeah.
video that's one of the most watched videos on the website, how to take your children fishing. And
Oh, okay.
it's super important that we don't blow it. And I believe that your friends and my friends that don't fish or don't hunt, it's because someone that took them blew it when they were little.
Yeah,
Because I don't care if you're spearing wahoo at the dock.
yeah.
If
Yeah.
if your friend doesn't like to spearfish because something they did it wrong and they screwed it up, or the
Yeah.
elk are eating out of your backyard and you can just take an elk anytime you want, but someone screwed that up. Same with fishing. If
Yeah.
the person that took you fishing screwed that up, and it's so easy to screw it up, and you only have one opportunity. If you ruin it, you ruin it. So I teach people exactly how to take their children fishing or their grandchildren so you don't blow it, so they end up with the same love you and I have about nature and the outdoors and understanding. You and I both know we're the biggest conservators of what we do. Nobody takes care of nature like outdoorsmen,
Yeah,
watermen,
sure.
and hunters. We take care of the outdoors better than anybody. You or I, we're not going to go buy a bunch of balloons in the ocean and not pick them up. We're not going to go
Yeah, yeah.
buy a bunch of trash on the ground when we're hunting elk and not pick that. We're going to go, oh
Yeah,
my
yeah,
gosh,
sure.
we're going to. And people don't understand. They just think, oh, you guys are murderers. You guys are just murderers. You just go out there and you just rape and pillage the ocean, and you don't.
Yeah, yeah.
We kill more than anybody because you and I want to take our grandkids and our children and go
Yeah,
show them what we did,
dude, I think
right?
that's kind of like one of the crux of the issue, though. I think, Dave, I want to hear your opinion on it. Is that you know, when I was exposed to as a kid, my kids are exposed to like like the reality of being a human is that it's a consumptive. We're consuming life, right? However you want to look at it. We're eating fish, we're eating elk, we're eating hamburgers at McDonald's, whatever. Like me and you, it's obvious the circle of life, right? But dude, to a lot of kids, it's not. To a lot of people, it's not. And I think that if they don't get exposed to that, they just they're more likely to like walk by trash or not realize how important the whole thing is. I think that's like it's all intermingled.
Yeah, I just don't think that it has meaning. It doesn't have meaning to them. Where your food comes from doesn't have meaning. I have that, you know me, I post so many videos every single day. It's
Yeah, yeah.
incredible. And people just go, the hater. You have them. We both
Oh
have them.
yeah,
I
yeah.
have
Of course.
we love them. They're our favorite part of the whole social media thing is the haters. You guys don't understand how much I really love you. I really do. But when they talk crap about this fish we took or that fish, I'm like, where does your food come from? What do you eat? Oh, I
Yeah,
only eat vegetables. Well, if you only eat vegetables, you kill more animals than Cliff and I have ever thought of killing. Like Ted Nugent says, oh my God, the vegan
yeah,
kills more animals than anybody. But we don't want to talk about reality. We just want to talk about all this fake reality that is being taught in I'm sorry, in our
yeah, yeah.
school. Cliff and Cliff's children and Dave and his grandkids are the problem. We're out there enjoying nature and taking the fish home or taking the elk home and actually enjoying it and eating it and teaching our kids how to care for it and how to take it apart and how to bag it up so we can have dinner Thursday, we can have breakfast Saturday, we can have another meal on Sunday night, all coming from what we caught, what we went out there and caught. And I hear this, that's another one I hear all the time. Do you really think the fish are safe that you're catching in the ocean to eat? I'm like, what are you eating? Are you eating a cow? Then you really don't care about what you eat. I love cow. Don't get me wrong. I'll be the first guy to eat a steak.
Yeah,
I love it.
sure.
I love a hamburger. But when people ask me that and then I see them eating a cheeseburger and I'm like, you already don't care about what you eat. So what are you asking me if the fish is okay for?
Yeah, yeah. Or dude, I mean, or even just within the segment of fish. People, you probably know more about this than I do, but it's crazy, Dave. Like when you start to really look at, big time commercial fishing, it's brutal in a lot of ways. Not necessarily just on the resource, dude. I mean, some of these boats, like I was talking to a buddy that does a bunch of spearfishing in Panama, and he explains to me that environment, and it's like, oh, what, like some of these people on these boats are like they're damn near slaves, like modern day slave in the it's almost like the Wild West slash like Pirates of the Caribbean out there.
Yeah, Indonesia, Thailand, those places, it is slave labor. They grab the people and throw them on the boat. They're not. Here's the okay. You open the door. The
Yeah.
United States, the United States of America is the largest consumer of seafood in the world. And mostly
Right.
you can combine all the other countries together and they don't even eat or waste as much seafood. We'll call it waste, but eat whatever, as
Yeah,
much
yeah.
seafood as the United States of America. But here's the really funny part, Cliff. We don't buy our own seafood.
Oh, so the stuff we catch is primarily exported.
Well, if you want United States caught seafood, it's going to be way more expensive than the stuff. If you're going to get your seafood at Walmart or Target or Costco, you're not eating sustainably caught fish. Okay, that's the big. You can slap a sticker on whatever you want. That
Yeah,
doesn't mean
yeah.
it's true.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you were to get a wahoo caught in the United States of America, it would be, let's say, for fun, $18 a pound. But if
Okay.
you wanted a foreign caught wahoo, it's going to be $6 a pound. Which one are
I
you
got you.
eating? You're not
Yeah,
going
yeah,
to
yeah.
buy. We don't, as consumers, you and I understand. We know where our food comes from, but most people don't. And they go to Walmart or Target because that's where they're going to buy their seafood. They're not going to buy it from their local seafood market, which employs a vast amount of people in the United States of America. If you go to Tunaville Market and Grocery in San Diego, for example, and you buy a piece of meat from a piece of fish from Tommy, you're helping not only Tommy Gomes and his employees, but you're helping the ice house that delivers his ice every day. You're helping the local fishermen that went out fishing all day and they're taking care of their families. You're also taking care of the coffee shop down by the wharf where these guys leave to
Sure.
go fishing every morning. You're helping the gas station on the corner. American caught seafood. You're employing a whole bunch of people. But when you go to Costco and you buy that, you're helping buy the fuel for that slave boat that's going out in Indonesia to go rape and pillage the ocean and get unsustainable seafood. And it's the craziest thing because
Yeah.
there's such a disconnect. Like you were talk about these ships. Yeah, but the United States ships aren't like that. Labor laws don't allow us to do anything crazy. There's nothing in all the every
Yeah.
part. When we bring a
So their cost structure, so the United States cost structure is way higher because they're following the rules, and so but they have to compete internationally with the other seafood providers. So that's really what goes in all the grocery stores. It's dude, it's so analogous to so many things, man. I mean, there's you know, a lot of things that we consume, our clothing and all sorts of other things that come from Asia where same deal. Different, they're exposed to different pollution regulations, different labor regulations, so the stuff's cheap. And so it's weird. You're able because I mean, the thing is, Dave is like on fish and why like meat because I'm in this world. I don't have like the dissonance from it, right? Like the cognitive dissonance. Like I know, like I mean, dude, if I go into Costco and I see a chicken, like a whole roasted chicken for $8, I'm like, how in the like how is that fucking possible? I can't even feed a chicken for $8. You know what I mean? So to me, it's like I'm very in tune with that. But when it comes to like this T-shirt, well, this T-shirt probably happens to be because this company does American made stuff. Might be an exception, but most of my T-shirts are from Asia, right? But it's easy for me to create the dissonance from that. That hey, I don't really like when I go buy like a $15 T-shirt. I don't really worry about what's behind it, but I should. But on the fishing and hunting, food, because I'm near that world, I do think about it more. You know,
Well, you know where all our seafood, our American caught seafood ends up in China. They pay the
Chris.
most for
Yeah.
it because it's the very, very, we have the very, very best seafood in the world. Our
Okay.
seafood taken care of better than anybody else's. Our regulations are higher than any other country in the world, but we can't buy our own food because we won't buy it. But China will pay $30 for a piece of fish this big all day, every day that came from America. That's got to tell you something right there. It's so messed up and it doesn't make any sense at all because they talk sustainable fishing out of one side of their mouth, but they don't buy any sustainably caught fish. So the United States
Yeah.
of America is the biggest hypocrisy in the world because we talk about all this, but we don't practice it in any way, shape, or form, not at all. And every time you buy a piece of fish from today forward, listening to this podcast, just look at where you bought it from. And if you're buying it from, and I'm not beating up on Costco. I go to Costco every day. I'm not beating up on them. I'm not beating
Yeah.
up on the
Sure.
growers. I'm just telling you where your seafood's coming from, gang.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't think I got a vendetta against the big box stores. I don't. I'm just letting you know they're not selling sustainably caught fish from the United States of America. They're just not, and it pisses me off because we're so regulated now. We just lost another part of our fishing out here on the West Coast. And so it just keeps going and going. And I watch what they're doing. The thing you and I talked about was that introduction of the wolves. Oh my God, those
Sure.
poor animals that have never seen a wolf now, they're just getting inhaled. They're sleeping in the bushes, and then the next thing you know, they're getting inhaled by pack of wolves, they didn't. Wolves have been
Yeah,
non-existent
yeah.
how long?
Dude, so let's just go there on it, Dave. I want to talk. I want to talk about you and your background a little more too. I wrote some notes when you were talking about your story getting into this, but we might as well go here because I actually had this conversation a week ago on somebody else's podcast. It was actually a trapping podcast, and there's like this hierarchy of consumptive use, right? You have like trappers, hunters, fishermen, farmers, gardeners, and like the trappers are on the chopping block because nobody likes them, right? Like like the general population cannot, they have a really hard time understanding that. Then it's hunters, then it's fishermen, then it's, the guy killing a squirrel that's eating his rose bush or whatever, right? I would have never have thought, Dave, growing up, that fishing would be under attack like that's like a totally out of this world to me. And so when you brought it up, I was like, because I haven't been in that world lately very much. My dad was a big fisherman and stuff, but like I'm like, what? Like what's like so explain what's going on there because I would have never thought, man, that are just an American's ability to go fishing, there might actually be an end to that at some point. Like that's a wild idea.
We're so close to it in California that it's hard to even comprehend it, and people don't quite understand. We've been under, for lack of a better word, and I don't like to use a bunch of negatives, but we're kind of the fishermen, the outdoorsmen in the state of California. We're under full steam attack. You're
Sure.
not. It's a different culture than anywhere else on the planet. They do not want you hurting the fish. They do not want you doing all these things with zero science. They're not putting any science behind it. And so what they're doing is they're not closing everything all at once. It's been a slow, gradual takeaway for a very long time. So that, and the I'm all over the place, but the worst thing is, Cliff, as fishermen, we agree on nothing. So
Oh yeah, hunters are the same way, man.
we just hand over our stuff. We just hand it over. We got a bunch of
Yeah.
guys sucking their thumbs that fish every day that are giving it away, and they're posting there's a post right now on Facebook that came up last night that they're talking about. Well, since we closed the rockfish and we did this, we might as well just close the yellowtail. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is
Dave,
what? Why
explain.
are we on such a mission to close everything?
Dave, if you mind, because my audience might not be, they're not going to be as in tune with this stuff as your audience is. Like, what are they doing? Like, they'll close down a specific species, um, and their argument will be like population issues, or give me an example just so I understand what's actually going on.
All right, so, and I'm sorry, but I got so much information. So back in
No,
the
no, dude, that's why I had you on. And anybody, just so like all the listeners know, like that's why I wanted you on, Dave, because I think there's so many analogies to the hunting world. And what's weird is like we're all siloed into our own activities, hunting, fishing, whatever. But the same thing seems to be happening simultaneously in the different worlds. So, dude, you don't have to apologize. Let it go out because I want to hear your perspective on it.
So back in the 50s, 60s, they did a lot of research with real scientists, and they went out and they took fish samples and they took water samples and they looked at nature, and they decided to set these limits up so that they would be sustainable, so that if we fished around these limits, we would always have fish to catch. And it worked, and it was epic, and it did a phenomenal, and there's zillions of fish because the regulations were put in the 60s, and they were done with science. And my favorite fish to catch is a calico bass. That's me and my wife. If we're fishing, we're going to go calico bass fishing in Southern California. You're anchored up on a spot. You're in a beautiful place. You throw your bait in the water. You catch a fish. That's why I fish anyway. I want to catch a fish. I don't want to go hunt. I'm not that guy.
Yeah,
I want to go to their house, throw my line in the water, catch a fish, jump in the water,
sure,
swim
yeah.
down, get an abalone. Jump in the water, swim down, get a scallop. So I know the spots. I know all that. So what they did with no science at all, they decided to close down massive amounts of the California coastline to zero take, zero fishing. Zero. Not go in there and catch and release or anything. Zero. So it was called the MLPA's, the Marine Life Protection Act. And this went
Yeah.
into effect about 15 years ago. And it was on a 10-year train down the tracks, and they were trying to figure out all these different maps. And we went to a zillion meetings, and we all went to the
Yeah.
meetings. Let me tell you, when you go to the meetings, you're going there on your time. We're fishermen. We don't have any, I'm being honest, we don't have any money. And then
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
when we attend these meetings, we're taken away from our livelihood. We're taken away from our family time, which is very limited as a fisherman because you're out for 18 hours a day, 7 days a week
Sure.
trying to make a living. But you're going to these meetings because it's generally going to affect your life. And they're showing us these great maps, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do that. And we had a big meeting, and we all decided we could live with map 2. That would be okay. If they're going to close it anyway. We can live with map 2. And then the day of the deciding of the maps, they brought out map 5 that none of us had ever seen before. And they went, that's the map. We're using this one. This is what's going to happen. And they took a massive amount of the California coastline away from everybody. No usage at all. You can't go in there at all.
Yeah.
Then, an hour after that, they told us that our calico bass, our sand bass, and our spotted bay bass were under the same amount of pressure at the same time, at the same day. And they took all of those from 10 fish limits to 5 fish limits, and they made the size that you're allowed to keep from 12 inches to 14 inches. Here's the really sad thing. Not one of those 3 fish live in the same water. They all have a different water habitat that they live in, different
Okay.
depths, different everything. Spotted bay bass live in the bay, sand bass live on the bottom, and calico bass live in the upper part of the water column. None of them are, the only thing they share is the last name. But they decided on the same day that they were all under the same amount of pressure, and they changed it from 12 inches, which we knew they spawned because science was done back in the old days, and they spawned I think it was 7 times they spawned it by the time they were 12 inches, and then it was
Okay.
okay to take them. Then it was okay to take them by then. And
Yeah.
they decided no, 14 inches. No science, no science. They just changed it one day. Bam, you woke up, you're allowed 5 now, you don't, or excuse me, you're allowed 10 now, you're allowed 5, and the size limit got bigger. I don't know about you, but when I'm sorry, when I was younger, I spawned a lot more than when I was older. So we're it just, it doesn't make sense. We're taking these 14 inches, which are like teenagers,
Yeah.
and now we're taking those. And that's the worst one you can be taking. But as a industry, we need some type of fish for our passengers to take home. So they took
Sure.
that away from us. And this is just what I'm talking about, the little bit at a time. First, they took a third of the coastline. Then they took our stable fish that has supported the industry from the beginning of time, has no commercial value. Calico bass, sand bass, and spotted bay bass are never been allowed to be commercially fished. So the only thing they're taking it away from is the recreational fisherman that has 0.0 effect of the population of fish with a fishing pole or a
Right.
spear gun. You're even
Yeah. Yeah.
you, as good a spear
Yeah. Yeah.
fisherman as you are, you have 0 effect on the population.
Yeah.
So they did that. Then it's just been a slow, steady take since that happened. And now it's rockfish, fish that live in 500-600 feet of water. There's they with no science, they've taken the limits from 15 to 10 to 5 to 2, just like
Yeah.
that. Bam, 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 bam. And so they're, what I believe is the reason for all this, they don't want to say they're closed fishing, but they're taking away enough of it that eventually, if we keep on going in the direction we're going, it's not going to be financially feasible. It's already cost a fortune to go on
Yeah.
you go out fishing for 3/4 day on a boat with 20 people, it's going to be $150
Yeah.
to go fishing.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you have your own boat, oh my gosh, it's going to be way more than that when you think about your boat payment and your gas and everything else. And
Right.
to think, people want to think, Cliff, when you go hunting, you're killing all the elk out there. And when Dave Hansen goes fishing, he's killing all the fish in the ocean, which is the farthest thing from the truth. It's
Oh
not
yeah.
ever.
Yeah. I
So
think
that's
for, I think it's even more relevant, Dave, like with fishing, that the recreational impact. I used to talk to my uncle who's from your neck of the woods down there in Mexico, and like the idea that the recreational fishing had like massive impact is kind of an insane idea, right? I mean, it's like, and I assume that goes for the same thing in Southern California. Is that there's what, like, just so the listeners and I know, Dave, like what are the big impacts on these species that they're limiting? I guess the question is like I totally hear where you're coming from, but why are they doing it, man? Is it like, is there a commercial, like, well, it sounds like for calico bass that's not the case, but for other species, is there, lobbying power from commercial fishing guys, or is it just that they don't want to see, they just want, like, it's like a protectionism, like they just want the ocean to be untouched? Like, what's their argument?
Power. I believe it's all about control and power, and if we're out there fishing and independently thinking, that goes against where we're headed in the United States of America now. We're not allowed
Yeah.
to free think. We're not allowed. And if we're out there free thinking and you're out on the water and you're enjoying yourself and you're smiling and you have a tan, oh my gosh, you are the most hated human being in the United States of America. And I that's the only thing that makes sense, because there's no lack of fish here. There's no
Yeah.
lack of fish in California.
like
There's
like
two
in your life, Dave, and I'm asking this because, like, I know that, like, you're one of the few people like live the whole life cycle, or like the whole cycle, and you've seen the species there. Like, have some of them gone down, or are some of them more plentiful, or is it pretty much how it was when you were a kid?
Well, my father, and he passed away last year. He's 87 years old, and the way he described it is, right now is the good old days. People go, the good old. This is the best we've ever seen. We've never seen
Oh,
bluefin
okay.
tuna. We've never seen the
Yeah, yeah,
bluefin tuna population like it is right now. It's absolutely insane. Like, you could come here in July or August, and I can guarantee you're going to get a fish over 100 pounds. I mean, that's never been done
yeah,
in the state of California, but it's been going on since 2015.
yeah,
The yellowtail bites have been historic. 2 years ago, we had the most historic mahi mahi dorado dolphin fish, whatever. It's the
yeah,
coolest fish in the ocean because it has three names. But
yeah.
we
They
had the
are
most.
cool.
Never in the history of the planet had we caught that many. There were boats that were catching 1,000 a day. The sport boats with
Yeah,
50, 60 people on it, and it was just crazy the amount of
right.
volume of fish out here. The ocean's fine. The ocean in California is fine. The kelp's fine. Here's the problem. Most people don't have 5 minutes to wait. Everything's cyclical, and I'm sure it is in hunting too.
Yeah,
The Everything's cyclical, and if we don't touch it and let nature do nature, it'll be just fine. And that's how the fishing is in California. It's fine. There's two real problems, though. You asked, so I'm going to tell you.
yeah,
urban runoff Urban runoff is probably the biggest problem we got in California. And then the
sure,
only other problem is the California sea lion, the most overprotected, underregulated animal on the planet Earth.
right.
They're zero die off of a species of an animal that is, on an average, 300 pounds, has to eat 30, has to eat. Listen, folks, this animal has to eat 35 pounds of fish a day, or he dies, or it
Yeah,
dies.
yeah, sure.
And
Yeah, because I mean, they're just a
there's
calorie
over
furnace.
4.5 million of them in California.
Yeah. Dude, let's talk about it, Dave, because I actually think that my listeners will really like this analogy to, like, wolves and predators in the hunting world. Give us the history on the sea lion, and then hit on how difficult of a management issue it is. Because let me give you a little flavor. Like, a lot of my listeners are going to be very in tune with this whole wolf thing. And wolves have been, they were reintroduced in Yellowstone. They've done pretty well in the West. They just got reintroduced into Colorado. And one of the big concerns in Colorado is that it's going to be in the other states like Idaho, Wyoming. There's actually been some management, Dave. Like, they've been able to have wolf hunting seasons. They've been able to manage a lot of the conflict with livestock guys, that sort of thing. But in Colorado, one of the issues, because the politics are different now that the wolves are reintroduced there, it's very likely that there may never be any management of them, because it's going to be very hard for there to ever be a hunting season pass or any of that. So that's the background on wolves. The reason the sea lion deal is interesting, because it's my understanding is it's way worse, right? From the management ability. So fill us in, man, because I think this is really interesting stuff.
All right. So if you love sea lions, this should really piss you off. And if you don't love them, this should really piss you off. But if you love
Right.
them, it can make you so angry that you can't even comprehend how angry you're going to get. Let's just be honest. I believe that there has to be sea lions in the ocean. I believe that
Yeah,
wholeheartedly.
sure.
But historically, 60 to 80,000 sea lions for the whole California coastline, which is very, very big coastline. It is humongous
Yep.
coastline. And that's a sustainable amount. That historically they know it. They did it with science. They know that's what it is. Right now they're saying the number they let us use is 4.5 million. We know it's way more than that. Okay. And they go all the way down the Baja Peninsula and then up into the Sea of Cortez. All the mangrove systems up and down the Baja have these animals in them. The rivers and the streams in Northern California, Oregon, Washington, Alaska have these California sea lions, which are one of the most intelligent marine mammals next to dolphins. They're the animal you see at the zoo or at the water parks doing all the thing, honking the horns, throwing the
Yeah, yeah,
hoops,
sure.
swimming. That's a California sea lion. Super intelligent animal. They're not seals. A seal looks like an inchworm on the ground. They undulate. They barely can move. California sea
Okay.
lion can top speed at 30 miles an hour for short distance of time. They can rotate their hindquarters so they can run on land, climb on top of rocks, and that makes them like super invincible. They're just a studly animal, bitchin' animal. They're
Yeah.
super smart, highly intelligent. Okay, so in 1967, President Richard Nixon decided to create the Marine Mammal Act because at that time we were still hunting whales in the United States of America.
Yeah.
So the sea lion got lumped in with the whales. And oh, if you want to know what we did with sea lions back in the old days, and we almost wiped them out, let's be honest.
Sure.
Ralston Purina and Company, California sea lions were used exclusively for dog food. So if you had a dog in the 50s, it ate sea lion, I promise you. That's what they
Oh,
did with
okay.
the sea lions in California. Okay, so
Oh,
there
okay.
was a problem.
I had always assumed it was a fur trade deal. They were just
Now,
used they were used for
food,
the meat.
high protein, low cost, zillions of them
Okay.
everywhere, easy to trap, easy to get.
Yep.
So they were the numbers were tiny. They were minuscule. They were in the thousands. Let's just
Okay.
say, okay. And then on the 1967 Marine Mammals Act, there's a small piece that says when it gets back to sustainable numbers, then it's time to take off the the protection and start
Yeah.
basically. You and I know what that means. You're allowed to harvest them again, okay?
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
that's a big word. We can't use harvest because a bunch of people will start crying. So in 1977, 78, a scientist found out that what was taking the sea lions out now, even though they were all protected and the numbers were jumping really fast because this animal has two uteruses, it's kind of like a bunny rabbit. Why she's
Oh, okay.
pregnant, why that sea lion's pregnant, she can get pregnant again during the third trimester of her pregnancy. So every 9 months, there's another sea lion. So
Oh, okay.
you
Cool.
if you use the double and a penny thing, it's the same thing. And all of a sudden, you're like, wait a minute, we got millions and millions and millions of
Yeah,
them.
they
How do we stop
explode.
this?
Yeah, yeah.
How do we stop this? Well, you don't. But then
What was what the historic sorry for stopping you, Dave, but historically before humans were killing them for dog food, was there any animal that was keeping them in check?
the killer whale,
Okay.
that's one of their favorite foods.
I
That's
got you.
they love those things. They
Yeah.
love
Yeah,
those
yeah, yeah.
things. But also nature was taking care of it. So this animal used to die of a disease called lungworm. That used to keep the numbers where they're supposed to be, like in the animal
Okay.
kingdom. Only the
Yeah,
strong
they just get
survive.
die-offs if they get overpopulated.
But in
Yeah.
the late 70s, early 80s, the state of California said no sea lion shall ever die, ever of anything. So what we started doing is taking these sick animals and we started vaccinating them. And we started to
Oh,
create a
gee.
super, yeah, think about this. We
Yeah.
created a super species of sea lions. Nothing can kill it. It won't die. It used to live average of 20 years. Now their lifespan is 60 years. You have no die-off of the species. They used to live to be 300 to 600 pounds. Now we see plenty of 1,000-pound
Dude,
males
so
out there.
hold on, dude. You're not making this up, are you, Dave?
You can Google it all. It's all right there for you to see. I
I'm
know
just
that
fucking with you. But I gotta hear this one more time because this is super interesting, man. So they started vaccinating them, and
a
through
wild
that process,
animal.
and so through that process, they basically have population wide immunity now, or lungworm just died off because it wasn't being hosted inside sea lions because they were vaccinated. So it's just non-existent in them anymore. That's
Right,
wild.
right. Like
Yeah.
us getting vaccinated in the 50s and 60s. The kids
Yeah.
today don't have the same vaccinations that we all had because we took care of that by vaccinating our host, our parents.
Yeah, sure.
So
Polio's gone because everybody. Yeah, yeah. Same idea. I get it.
so now anybody can Google a video of San Francisco Bay and you can see the docks at Fisher. Just for fun, we're going to play another game. Let's say you and I and my producer and your producer put our money together and we bought some docks in San Francisco. Why did we buy those docks? We bought them so that we could rent them to people and we could make money, right? We didn't just
Yeah,
buy
sure.
them so we could say, we own docks. No, we wanted to income. We wanted
Yeah.
to, well, if you go up to San Francisco right now, Fisherman's Wharf, those docks are overrun by the California sea lion. The California sea lion has more rights than a human. You could probably get away with killing Dave Hansen, Cliff. You could probably do that. But if you got caught squirting a sea lion with a hose, you're going to a federal penitentiary. They're the
Oh,
most
so you can't even deter them away from your dock?
oh, it's against the law. So
Gee.
it's crazy. And so they've taken over all the docks, they've taken over all the boats in the harbors. If you let's just say you and I own $1 million yacht and we come down on it tomorrow morning and there's a sea lion in the cockpit. Well, you better, if you get caught poking at him with the stick, you're going to a federal penitentiary. That's a federal offense. And the really scary thing is no lawyer is going to defend you because nobody wants to get their hands dirty. The sea lion word is the most important word in the marine mammals world. It's like they don't even talk about it at the marine fisheries, Pacific Marine Fisheries meetings. They don't talk about it in Congress. They don't. Sea lion's like the forbidden word. They it doesn't make any sense. And now we have this giant problem. They've taken over all these docks and they've taken over all this public land and they've taken over these giant areas. But gang, you don't understand. This animal goes to the bathroom wherever it's at and it doesn't matter. And if
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to get real visual right now. If you look at these docks at Fisherman's Wharf, you have dead animals laying on the dock. There isn't someone there to push them off because no one's going near there because it's called a sea
Yeah.
lion. And if he bites you, he's going to rip your arm off. They got 10 times the biting strength of a pit bull.
Right.
So you got these dead, rotting animals, and you got these healthy animals laying on top of the dead, rotting animals. And then the healthy animals are going to the bathroom on the dead, rotting animal. And all that's washing into the water where your birds and
Yikes.
your fish are, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of scary. And then if let's say one of them's laying on, they got that scum on their fur, and then they go over and they lay on your dock, and it gets on your line that you tie your boat up with, and you grab it, and you got cuts in your hand like I do because I'm a fisherman, so I got little cuts and stuff, and then that bacteria gets in there. It's a flesh-eating bacteria caused by the California sea lion. No one's talking about it. Don't talk about that,
Yeah.
Dave. We can't talk about that. But this is what happens when you have zero regulation of a mammal. And this animal follows around the boat. You go fishing, they're super
Yeah.
intelligent. They hear your motor, they just come cruising over, and then they can smell your bait tank because that's their job. They got to eat. They can smell the food in your bait tank. They follow you everywhere you go. Every time you throw your line in the water, they eat your bait off your hook. Or
Right.
the smarter ones wait till you hook a fish and then they eat it.
Right.
It's crazy. And they don't
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
be in the harbors, Cliff. They don't want to be in the harbors. They want to be out at the islands, at the rookeries out there, but there isn't any room because it's overpopulated. There's no rookeries, and it's not because we took away their islands. because those islands have never had anybody build on them. Santa Cruz, the Channel Islands, there's no buildings on them. There's nothing taken away, but all the rookeries are as full as they could possibly be. You couldn't put another animal in them if you wanted to.
Right, right. And it's like, to me, Dave, this is it's like a cautionary tale for all wildlife in the modern day world. When we get something that is just like, when you get these rules that come through that, even if they're not stated like this from the get go, that it's like a you can't touch them type of deal. If that's what it turns into, it's a major problem, man. Like, think there's like a lot of these issues in the US. The wild horse deal is like this. The wolf deal goes in and out of this. The grizzly bear deal is starting to become a little bit of this in areas where they get habituated to people. There's these different species and different laws. Those are just ones in my world. I'm sure there's a bunch of others in yours. But when you have like management of them is taken off the table, either legally or just culturally, it's like it's a really big problem. And you point out, like, the biggest loser is a lot of times the animals that are born into it. Like, they get born into like I mean, I've been to Fisherman's Wharf. Like, when I was there last time, which was like a decade ago, it was pretty gross. You know what I mean? So I can only imagine now. But I think the big takeaway on it, man, is like, anytime that there's something that comes through that's like, you just can't, you like, this is a hands-off deal, you know, people have to be really caution, like, they gotta have a lot, like, be really careful of that kind of stuff when it comes to wildlife, because it's like constant issues with that, man. California has a similar deal. You may not, it's not in your world, so you're probably not all that um up to speed on it, but California has a similar deal with mountain lions. Are you familiar with like the mountain lion laws there, Dave?
It's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. That's another animal that has more rights than a human. Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
and the thing that's crazy, yeah, I can hear you, man. There's a little lag for a second, but I lost you. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, it's good now. It was crackly for a minute.
Yeah. But what I was gonna say is, the lion deal. The thing that's crazy about it is they're still killing them there. You know what I mean? Because they have to, because of the conflicts. It's just that, paid government guys and stuff are killing them. It sounds like the sea lion thing's even worse because none of that's going on. There's no, they can't even do that, right? They can't pay to have the animals killed or culled or whatever.
No, just for example, let's just say back to what we were talking about. We have that dock. They destroyed the dock. You know what? You and I have to rebuild the dock. You know where the sea lion goes? To one of the shelters to make sure he didn't get a sliver or something. It's just the craziest thing in the world. They're allowed to destroy. We own 9 docks in Dana Point Harbor. My family does. We do a massive.
Yeah,
The amount of money we spend every year repairing the docks from the demolition that the sea lions cause our docks is just incredible, because the docks aren't designed to hold these 1,000-pound animals on one side of it and it doesn't flex. It's made out of wood or it's made out of concrete. And when it flexes with the animal laying on it, it breaks all the wood in it. And then you have to go and replace that because you're putting people on your boats that are paying money to go. And you know how it is in California. If they trip
sure.
and fall, you're going to get sued. So they're destroying docks up and down the California coast. The state of California spends an exorbitant amount of money just repairing all the things that they destroy on a daily basis. And there's no repercussion. And now they're starting to bite people. And I think it's the same thing as it's going to end up being the same thing as the mountain lion. The only time they kill a mountain lion is after it's attacked somebody and ate someone's head or bit someone's throat out. And then they're like,
Yeah,
whoop, we better do something about this. Really? You didn't
yeah.
see it coming?
Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
didn't.
Why not be preemptive about it? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess what's your handicap on what actually happens, Dave? Like, you think, I mean, I guess one problem is it gets so badly overpopulated that they have like some sort of disease that shows up and runs through them. But I mean, what else could get it under control?
Well, my biggest was, and I talked about this 15 years ago. We spayed and neuter our dogs we spend so much money just repairing stuff, and people go, "Oh, it costs too much to spade or neuter the sea lion." Well, it doesn't anymore. Not when you look at the loss of private property on a daily basis, or the loss of
Sure.
county property or taxpayers' property. You just go, "Wait a minute, how? What's the payoff here? If the county of Orange has to replace 15 docks this month because they broke them, it's got to be less expensive to
Yeah.
spade or neuter 'em, because you'll see them grabbing these animals, these sick animals off the beaches. It makes every news news channel in America when they save a sea lion in California, which my biggest question always has been saving it from what?
Yeah.
Dying because it's sick?
Exactly.
It's an animal, gang. I love animals. I got a pet monkey. I got 2 cats. I love animals, but I don't know. I just don't
Yeah.
understand.
You know what's crazy? What's crazy to me, Dave, is like even in a conversation between like me and you and my audience for sure is they're all saying this right now. Is they're like, well, the logical conclusion and what any guy would have said, 75 years ago, to be like, well, let's just kill 20% of them, or let's just kill 40% of them and turn them into dog food. And I almost cringe at myself when I say that, but it's a logical, to me, that's a logical, most economical approach to it, but it's like it's off the table.
Yeah, that would never happen, especially in California. It would just never
Yeah.
happen. The one thing we got going on our side right now is there's another animal that's even more bitchiner, and we all love, and we think they're the coolest animal on the planet. And now, because of this sea lion problem, they're starting to have a problem, and that's the killer whale. The killer whale is being
Okay.
affected by the overpopulation of the sea lion, because there's a certain killer whale. There's different groups or phylums or whatever the scientific name is of killer whales. One group, they only eat tuna. One group, they only eat mammals. One group, they only eat stingrays. One group, they only eat manta rays. One group, they only eat salmon.
And they're are they different species, Dave, or are they just like they're just like they're culturally different, basically?
Yeah, they're culturally different. That
Oh,
group that
okay.
eats mammals, they only eat mammals. They don't go, well, we're going to have mammal today, tomorrow we're going to have salmon. So what's
Yeah,
happening
yeah, yeah.
is the group that only eats salmon is being affected massively by the overpopulation of the California sea lion. And a lot of you out there are going, why? Well, if you're my age, we used to watch a show, The Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau. Used to be on it. I remember the first time Jacques Cousteau showed us the fish ladders up the dams for the salmon to get up to their spawning grounds. And we were like, what a great idea. That's a phenomenal idea. And the salmon did it, and they've done it since they built these things in the 80s, these fish ladders, okay? Well, the California sea lion, remember what we talked about? He's super smart.
Yeah.
California sea lion, they live in these fish ladders now. They live there. That's their house.
Oh,
The biggest male, the biggest guy, he's got the first rung of the ladder. Then
the best
his
spot.
his adversaries that can't fight him off, they got the next rung, and then the next rung. And let's say there's 9 rungs. The first rung's going to have one big sea lion. The second rung's going to have
Yeah.
one, maybe two. The next rung's going to have 3. The next rung's going to have 4 as you go up the thing. So a salmon making it up the ladder is impossible. People don't understand that. They want to say, oh, the
Right.
fishermen took it all. Nope. The California sea lion, he's so smart. If you go to these fish ladders, the only thing they're taking from the salmon is their belly. They're tearing that belly off. They grab that salmon with their mouth when it jumps,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
latch on, put it down, put their flipper on it, and then rip the belly out, and then grab the rest of it with their head and fling it on the beach. They only eat the belly. That's where all the highest protein is. That's where all the fats are. That's where the eggs are, the milk. They're
Yeah, it's
just eating that
soft.
part of the salmon. Because you know why? Because they know another salmon's coming in a minute.
Yeah.
So they don't have to eat the whole salmon. And if you go
Yeah.
up there, thousands of salmon carcasses laying on the side of the with their stomachs ripped out.
Yeah.
And nobody, you don't see it on the news. You don't, I'm not making this
I
up,
know.
gang. This is
No, no, dude, I know you're not making it up, Dave, because what you're describing, I think it's so interesting that 90% of the human population just projects that wild animals eat 100% of whatever they catch, even when it would be irrational for them to do so. It's not like the sea lion you're describing, Dave. It's not like he's a dick. He's just smart, right? Like, I mean, he's just
Well, he
ripping
doesn't
out the
have
belly. He's like, I catch another one. Why would I worry about eating the head?
doesn't have to
You
eat
know?
the skull, doesn't have to eat the
Yeah,
bones, doesn't have to eat the backbone, doesn't have to deal with the spines. None of that. And
yeah,
people laugh, oh, that's not, it's going on right now every single day. They know it. And they know when the salmon run, when the run's
sure,
gonna happen, they know, and they all start staging and getting in their spots. And
yeah,
it's so crazy because one time in Oregon, they took one of these giant, massive bulls and they took him and they put him on a barge in a cage and they took him way, way, way far away, like
yeah,
500 miles away, and threw him in the water. And before the boat got back to Seattle, he was
yeah.
already
He was,
there. He was
yeah,
there. They knew
yeah,
exactly who it was. He had tags on his ears and everything. They knew it was him. He beat the boat back.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
It's
Same
so
thing. Same
crazy.
that same dynamic happens with bears a lot. Same deal. They got like a homing instinct, and they're just like, I'm going back to where I know what's going
The
on.
food is
Yeah,
where the
yeah.
food.
Yeah, nowhere's good. But dude, I mean there's a lot there. And I want you to finish the story on the killer whales. But man, that there's a lot of analogies in the hunting world on that. And I've seen it lots of times, Dave. Like I think I've actually had a few not like arguments, but like disagreements with biologists on this, on certain predators, lions, bears, and lions and black bears. I've spent a fair amount of time around, and for sure they learn they learn from their mom, and that knowledge gets transferred down. Like there will be black bears who in their whole life they'll never even think about eating an elk calf. They don't even know. They don't even. It's like they don't even calculate it as a
Food.
source of food. And then there'll be a whole lineage of black bears that the day like the way elk calve, they calve in a very short period of time because it's actually like a defensive mechanism. Because if a whole herd of elk calve at the same time, the predators can't kill all the calves, right? Because during that 2 or 3 day period when they're real susceptible, they can't run yet. They can't. If the whole area has calves all over it, then the predators can only do so much damage. So they calve during like a really short window. But there's a certain lineage of black bears that their mom taught them and their grandma taught their mom, and that's exactly what they do. When elk calve, they go right to that spot and kill calves for 4 or 5 days. But there'll be other black bears that have no idea what the hell's going on because their mom never told them. You never showed them, and that for sure exists. I think it's hilarious when people argue that there's no transfer of knowledge in animals. It's like, what world are you living in?
Right. And we are animals, so don't
Yeah,
even
yeah,
tell us for 1 second.
yeah.
But
But so it sounds like the killer whales. That's what's going on.
well, now they're starting to starve
Sure,
because they're not getting their salmon, and
and they
they've
can't,
closed
and they
down.
can't, and they're not substituting into killing the sea lions because they don't know.
Just like what you said, the bear doesn't know that that elk is food. He's eating
Yeah,
berries. That's what he
yeah,
eats. He doesn't know he could turn left and go have a cheeseburger, but
yeah,
he'd rather
yeah,
starve because there's no berries in the tree and he's going to starve. That's animals, though. They're going to starve. They're not going to switch
yeah,
foods. They're going to starve. That's just the way nature's been set up to take care of nature. Gang. You can't go up there and throw a whole bunch of sea lions in the water and go, here, eat these. And they're going, we don't eat those. We eat salmon. And
yeah.
so now, because of that, there is some pushback from our side, if you would, the conservationists, the people that actually care about the
Sure.
ocean. In Oregon, they're like, wait a minute, we got to stop this. We cannot allow this animal to just devastate the salmon population, and the orcas are starving to death because of this. That's a problem. Now, if it was just you and me, it never would have changed. But because the orcas involved now, This is a
Yeah.
new eye-opening experience. It's got people's attention in the Midwest. That's where most of the laws are drawn up by the people that have never seen the ocean. And so we got a little feather in our cap. It's like, yep, we've been telling you guys, but now you're starting to see it. So now you think it's time to do something.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting, Dave? Like you see that in the hunting world too, man. Like it takes another species that I guess the way I would describe it is they have fundraising power, right? Like the calico bass probably doesn't have the fundraising power that Shamu does. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so
Yeah.
it takes that, and it's really like it's I mean, it's in this case it's a good thing that it's getting some recognition and money into the addressing the issue, but it's a really shitty way for solutions to arise. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, it's horrible.
yeah, that certain species are going to get, they're the only ones that really get the credit. And that's what's so interesting, man, is a lot of these people who are real like into you know supporting the sea lion or whatever, they don't they're not into supporting a bunch of other species. Like I'm sure there's a bunch of other species that sea lions are causing issues for that nobody gives a shit about, right? I mean, there's probably dozens of them.
Well,
So
that's what I
it's
talk about on my podcast a lot is, can you imagine being a largemouth bass up in the Sacramento River and you're just hanging out
yeah,
in the corner waiting, and then all of a sudden here comes this giant animal and just eats you.
yeah, and they are, do they, like I
Aren't
could
used
see
to
them.
getting-
What's that?
Largemouth bass aren't used to getting eaten.
No, they're just like sitting there. So that's that. I mean, I didn't know that. I was just naive, man. I didn't know that the sea lions, they can survive in fresh water too. That's pretty normal.
Oh
That's
yeah.
wild.
They're
Yeah,
just
they're
they're
just
just they're
adaptable
a
to
big
that.
dog. They're just a big
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah,
They're-
I've dove with them a few times in it's been like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, but I dove with them a fair amount in Monterey. Um and it's they're really cool in, like, in the kelp, and my experience with them is they're really they're real intimidating, the ones at least I was around, just because of their size.
and they're
But they're
speed. And the way they can move
yeah,
in the water, they're fast.
yeah, they look like a lump of lard on the sitting there on the dock, but underwater they're like ballerinas, you know. So they are pretty neat. It's funny, Dave. I wrote a note here when you were talking about the what are they called, MLPAs, the
Yeah,
zones
the
that are
Marine
like,
Life Protection
yeah, the no
Act.
take zones. I actually, my first experience with spearfishing, now it's been about 20 years, or one of my first experiences. Um, my first experience diving was actually abalone in Northern California when I was probably 18 or 19. And then I actually speared a fair amount around Monterey, and I was actually looking at the MLPA map, and almost, I think, like everywhere I used to spear in Monterey is now a no take zone, like 100% of the spots, which is kind of interesting. But it's also telling that I'm sure that you know that that I mean, it's a lot of the coast there, man. Like, to take away, the fishing, and if people are into spear fishing, whatever, it probably, I guess, the end result is that people just don't do it because now they don't have access to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it just gets too expensive to work around the
Yeah.
areas that you can go to. And another thing, we got this new thing coming. Well, it's not new. They put it on back burners during the pandemic, but we got this thing coming down the pipe right now, 30 for 30 in or 30 by 30 in California. And that means they're going to close another 30% of the California coastline, and they're going to close another 30% of the streams and lakes. They're coming after the freshwater, which they haven't come after yet. This will be the first time they've come after the freshwater guys. So we talk about it a lot on the podcast because the freshwater guys have always kind of joked, they took away another one of your areas. Well, now they're coming for your guys, and they're coming for the freshwater. And it has nothing to do with science. It's 100% about control, period. You're never going to convince me that that's not what it's about. But I want you to leave
Yeah.
the comment. because I'll go back and look at the podcast and I want to see your comments. And if you got comments that are going to tell me different, that it's not about control, I'm going to invite you to come out on the boat and we'll go fish for whatever fish you think is not here anymore. And we'll catch more of them than you've ever caught in your life. And you're going to go home with your jaw hanging, because that's not what it's about. It's not about the fish. It's not about the animals. It's about controlling you and I and Cliff and telling us what we can do. Period.
Yeah, Dave, I don't though. I mean, unfortunately, man, I don't have a argument against that, and I think I've been like naturally resistant to that idea because it just seems, for most of my life, it seems so far fetched. But the more and more you see it, it's kind of hard to deny it, man. The freshwater one, and tell me if I'm wrong, but you delve into really not having another explanation because I'm assuming a lot of the freshwater fish are stocked fish. So if like how could you even have a biological argument, right? Of like, hey, we're going to close trout fishing in this lake. Like, well, why? If they're catching too many of them, why don't you just put more trout in the lake? Am I off? It, like I don't like what are they arguing? What are they arguing to close a freshwater place to fishing?
You're absolutely 100% correct. And we talked about it a couple weeks ago when I had the head of the California Conservation Association, CCA California.org, Wayne Coda, was on my show. And the places they got drawn up that they're going to close, all the fish that are there, we put them there with our fishing
Yeah.
licenses. The money they got from our fishing licenses are why they stocked those. But the same thing happened in the ocean. No one's talking about when they closed these marine life protection areas. It was to preserve the structures that live there. We built the structure. It's called artificial reefs. And the way they built the artificial reef systems back in the 60s and 70s is they took fishing game funds that they got from our licenses and built these reefs for us so we could go catch these fish that wouldn't even be there if it wasn't for us building the reefs. And then they closed it to us.
Oh, really? So some of the areas that are closed are actually man-made reefs?
Oh, there's a sewer pipe that runs right down to one of them, right in the middle of one of them. We all stood up and said, wait a minute, the sewer pipe right here, the Aliso sewer pipe in Laguna Beach, California, runs right dead center in the middle of the marine life protection area. It's so hypocritical or whatever. It just doesn't make any sense to a normal thinking human being. It's just like, wait a minute, that
Yeah, dude.
pipeline has so many
That
fish on it, and it was built by us with our taxpayers' money, and it's covered. The pipes, when they put pipes in the ocean, gang, they cover them up with rocks. They look like break walls under the water. Phenomenal place
sure.
to go hunting for fish. Phenomenal place to go fishing for fish. It's a reef. It's a big giant reef.
Yeah.
At the very end
Yep.
of it, that's where the water comes out. The water's not coming out with poo in it. It's treated. The water's treated. It's just
Yeah, sure.
you got to do something with the water. So they cover them up with rocks to keep them from getting destroyed in storms. But it becomes a phenomenal habitat. And they closed down that. They closed down all the artificial reefs we built. And now they're going to close down the lakes and the streams that Cliff and Cliff, you helped them stock them too because you were a kid fishing here, buying your
Yeah,
fishing
yeah,
license.
sure.
You
Yeah,
put the brown trout in Crowley. You put the rainbow trout in Rush Creek. You put the rainbow trout in the lakes
sure.
in California, and you put the largemouth bass, and you put all the other fish that live here in the lakes. The lakes didn't come with fish when we got them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's like yeah, I mean, I'm gonna change the topic on you here for like do you got another 15 minutes, Dave?
I got all day for you.
All right, dude. So on this topic, I want to wind it up because the freshwater one, like I've been clinging on to like some other, I a lot in the hunting world, Dave. I've always clinged on to the idea that a lot, and I think this is part of the reason that there's so much pushback on particularly certain species like lion hunting, bear hunting. I can understand how some people who have never been exposed to it and they've never done it, they could view it as distasteful or whatever. I could see that, and I could also see them just having kind of a bleeding heart for it. And I always kind of assumed that that was the vast majority of the pushback in the hunting world. Um, in that world, I think analogous to a lot of the stuff we've talked about today, man. I think it's just really hard to attribute all that's going on just to that, because a lot of it just doesn't make sense, man. Like, okay, sure, you don't want to see an animal killed. Okay, sure, you don't want to see a sea lion killed, but if you go look at them, it's really apparent that they're in a bad situation, right? So like the logic that it's about the animal goes away. And then you wonder like what is this deeper thing, man? And I think I'm agreeing with you, and it probably for the a big chunk of it, Dave, is that it just has to do with that. I think, unfortunately, man, that there's a distaste for people who are, self reliant, doing their own, going out and, killing their own animals or catching their own animals, any of that. There's just like a big chunk of our population just is, they just inherently don't like people that are doing that. And it's freaking weird. You know what I mean? Like,
It's what they're teaching our children. Nobody
yeah, yeah,
teaches reading, writing, and arithmetic anymore. Nobody
yeah,
teaches what you're supposed to learn in school. You don't go to school to be taught how to think about other things. You go to school to learn how to read, write, and add up
yeah,
numbers, and
yeah.
period. After that, the rest is up to your parents or whatever. But we don't teach that anymore, and so everyone has an agenda, and these agendas are getting shoved down all of our throats. And you and I talked about this. I don't know. You had your one friend that was on Rogan's show, and he was talking about that he believes in his heart, and you guys are friends. So you were like, "Yeah, I heard him. It's all about control. It's all about
Yeah.
control." It's unfortunate. It sucks to think that we've come to that point in the United States of America where we're lost all freedom of that we fought for so hard, and all that freedom's
Right.
being taken away because of someone's agenda at some college or some preschool that started out with their agenda and now brainwashed all these people. And it's just very, very sad to think that we're there. Well, all of a sudden now we're there, dude, and we're the last hanger oners.
Yeah, yeah, I know, dude. It is wild. I mean, all I can say is like my personal prescription for it, Dave, and you can tell me if I'm crazy or whatever. And I'm sure people will think I'm crazy for saying this, but I just try to teach all my kids, man. And then like their buddies, here where I live part of the year in Puerto Rico, like all their buddies who are not exposed to it. Like my little boy, man, he's got 3, 4 buddies that come from families that have totally different background than I have, and like I take them all fishing, and I got them all addicted, dude, because they all, like they're all like, there's something about little boys and little girls. Like you take them fishing and they have fun. We go catch little snappers this big. They start learning the whole deal. Like almost all of them like it. Like sure, all of them are not gonna like constantly want to go, but like 60% of these kids here, they want to go all the time. Like if my wife runs into their parents and they're like, dude, my little boy, all he can talk about is Cliff. Like when's the next time Cliff's gonna take him fishing? So that's the only prescription that I can view as the problem. And I guess my kind of odd perspective on it is if it all goes to hell in a handbasket, at least like my kids and the kids that were exposed to that, I think they'll do better when the zombie apocalypse hits. I think they'll do better.
Right. Well, I know my boys are going to be good because they know how to change a tire, they know how to catch a fish, they know how to clean a fish, they know how to do laundry, they know how to
Yeah,
cook a meal. I mean, unfortunately there is a whole bunch of grown ass boys out there, but there's very, very few men anymore. I'm sorry, I'm just going to be honest. I know I broke your heart, but there's very few men anymore. There are very
oh
few men
yeah,
out there. There's a bunch of grown ass boys, but they're not doing anything to help this world. They're not teaching. They're not doing anything. They're just going along. They're just focused on,
yeah.
well, I don't know what, but destroying
The,
destroying the United States of America.
yeah, it's in. the thing is, Dave, is like I feel like I see when you talk about it, man. Like I watch your videos. You're filleting a fish. You're talking about something with lobsters or whatever. And I want to talk about your interest in it. It's because dude, me and you share this thing where it seems to be. I don't want to project this on you, Dave, but you're kind of a generalist in the fishing world to some extent. Like you're not just a one species guy. I share that same dynamic, but I'll go there in a minute because I want to make this point. You have a spark in you, like about it, man, and I have that same spark. Like, dude, I'm not like yesterday. I had a rainbow runner here, and I had never filleted one. In that, like, dude, I'm a 40-year-old man. I got 1,000 other things going on in my life, and figuring out how to fillet that thing, like, I just liked it. It's just like intrinsically fun to figure out how to fillet that fish, right? And it's like to me it's intrinsic, but what I have realized, man, is that a lot of the people you're talking about, they missed out on that. There's a lot of grown, like you say, like adult, boys basically that, yeah, one, they're kind of now they're in powers of position. They're running Facebook, they're running Instagram or whatever. And so now they're like back actually pushing back on all this stuff. But the other part of it, dude, is they missed out on something that's like intrinsic to who we are. You know what I mean? Like it's so weird to me that filleting a fish, cooking a fish on a campfire, to me, dude, I do these shorts, Dave, like where I'll take the back strap off of a bull elk, and like I get like 80% of the once they go viral, 60% of the comments will be like how much of a weirdo I am. And I'm like, dude, how this is not weird. Like I enjoy it. Like I enjoy, the fact that I have perfected, like I can peel the back strap off an elk better than almost anybody. You know what I mean? It, see, I
Oh, I
see you
know.
nodding because you can relate, dude. But a lot of guys can't relate. Isn't that fucked up?
Oh, it's so gnarly. My wife, I get 30,000 comments a month, buddy, and I bet you
Yeah,
29,990 are the most vile, negative stuff you've ever seen on stuff that I've done at the highest level for my whole life. Like, and people go, "Oh,
right.
you don't know how to anchor, you don't know how to fillet a fish, you don't know how to drive a boat, you don't know how to tie up a boat," and it's just like, "Are you kidding?" Okay, well, if that's the case, then I sure did put on a hell of a show for 49 years, boy. I put on
Yeah,
one hell of a show for 49 years. I did it at the highest level you could do it at. And it doesn't make any sense to me, except that I come from the world that I ran a lot of big yachts for a lot of big billionaires and millionaires. And I seen the way that they raise their children. And there's just the total disconnect and the whole thing. And that's what's gone on in America. I've just seen the most unbelievable vile little kids and vile parents and just undisconnected from their kids. And it just, oh, it's
sure.
so gross. It's just so gross for me to see that. And I lived in that world for a very long time where these, what's going on in the
Yeah,
world
yeah,
today, I saw it coming. I watched it coming, man. I watched all these
yeah,
disconnected
yeah, yeah,
that didn't
yeah,
spend 10 minutes teaching their kids anything because nobody spent any time teaching them. So they don't have shit to teach. So
yeah, yeah,
then it's
yeah.
just, and
No, I
you
get it.
go on. So then they don't know anything about what you do or what I do. So what do? They condemn us because they don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
They have no knowledge. So they're just like, oh, well, shit, he's taking the back strap off an elk, which is one of the best parts of the thing to eat. Or like you turned me
yeah,
on to the mountain lion back strap. I'm sorry, I don't know if we're supposed to talk about, but
yeah.
yeah, some of the best parts of the animal, and you're the very best at getting it ready to prepare to eat. And then people are going, that's the dumbest shit I've ever seen. It's like, no,
Yeah.
that's what we're supposed to do, folks. That's what we're
Yeah, dude.
supposed to do.
I think that's a really good take on it, man. Is that people who are unfamiliar with it, they tend to want to condemn it. You know what I mean? Um, I think that's you freaking nailed it probably with that, Dave. That's probably a big aspect of the whole shebang, but dude, this is I love all the political talk, Dave, but I want to dig a little bit more into in your just for like 10 minutes here, man. So, are you like I look at your stuff, Dave, like calico bass, bluefin tuna, lobster. You touched on in the beginning that your dad had like basically he developed like the whale watching world. Um, it like all these different things. Has that been like is that a function of your personality? Are you still looking for like new species to figure out, or what's your perspective on that? Because I think you're kind of unique in that way. And I actually get dude, honestly, like in the hunting world, sometimes I actually get like a little negative feedback from my peers to me personally, because they're like, oh, Cliff, like, you want to guide, you always want to do a new species or a new thing. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's kind of my personality. So do you have any perspective on that?
Well, I started out working for my family on the sport boats, if you will. And back in those days, we would catch 800 or 900 fish every trip. So
Yeah.
if I did 3 trips in a day, I did a trip at 6:30 in the morning, I did a trip at 12 o'clock, and then I did a trip at 5:30. And each one of those trips, we'd catch 800 fish, and we fillet all 800 of those fish in an hour. Two guys. We
Yeah.
did it every single day. I know you don't believe me, but that's okay. I don't really care if you do or if you don't. But that's what we did. That's how we grew up.
I believe you, man.
That's what. No, not you. I'm talking to the haters out there that are just waiting for Dave to say something they can hate on. So we did that every single day in the 70s and 80s. Then I started to understand I would need to take care of my family. I can't make money 5 months or 6 months a year. I need to make money year round. So I started to learn how to fish for lobsters. And I started to do that and take people in the wintertime, teach them how to catch lobsters and nets and do just stuff that no one had ever thought of before. And then we started to catch grunion on the beach to use for bait in the wintertime because the fish would eat it, because that was and we just evolved. People go, oh, you grew up with the silver spoon. Your dad owns all those parts. But my dad was a super smart man, and he made me work. He made me work. I started out working on the boats when I was 14. I worked. I worked my whole life. No one gave me anything. And then I left the family business in 1989, and I started Your Saltwater Guide, where I go with you on your boat and teach you how to fish on your boat. No one had ever done that before. So then I'm out fishing on different boats in different waters that I'd never been in before, and different harbors. Because when you're doing the sport boat thing, you're one dimensional. You're going out of the same harbor every single day. And when I started Your Saltwater Guide, I'd go on a different harbor. I'd be in San Diego one day. I'd be up in Oxnard the next day. Then I'd be out of Catalina the next day. Then I'd be at San Clemente Island the next day. Then the next day I'd be down in the Baja for a week. And then I'd leave there and I'd come back up and I'd fish in Dana Point for calico bass again. So you had to learn how to do all these things if you wanted to make a living in this
Yeah.
industry. Yeah, I'm not a one trick pony. I was blessed to learn. And I don't even know nothing right now. So I'm still learning every
Yeah,
single
it's
day.
still, yeah, and I like that, like, that mindset, man. Like, I've tried to have that mindset in the hunting world, like, kinda like beginner's mind, because you learn a lot real quick. But, it's interesting, Dave, like, I probably a lot of the listeners and the viewers, I know it because 'cause I've been in the outdoor space. The biggest accomplishment that a guide outfitter, can do in any of these spaces is to develop like a hunt or a trip or a species. It's really hard, man. It like for me personally, I've done it a couple of times too. They're going to be analogous to the things that you've done with, lobster and stuff. But it's really fun, but man, it's so hard because all your competitors, even all your clients, they don't even know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like you're offering something new, you've got to develop it, you've got to get it so, all the business parts of it, right? It's not like crazy variable. You've got to get it like fine tuned. I love that stuff, man. And I'm always intrigued by guys that have developed those things, man. Because I know how hard it is to do, but also it's also like pretty rewarding. You know what I mean?
Big time. And this social media thing for me has been probably the most rewarding thing I've ever seen, because I had no idea that this many people on the planet would enjoy listening to me and understanding what I'm saying. Whether they're haters or not, they're still listening. I mean, my best month, I had
Yeah.
30 million views. I mean, I average 10 to 12 million views a month right now across my social media. That's crazy. I'm a 62-year-old man. I had no idea that many people wanted to listen to my stupid mouth, but yeah, it's
Yeah, well,
amazing. And
I mean, you
built that
created
website I built the website out of clear blue sky too, Your Saltwater Guide. Now we have over 4,200 members. My wife and I thought it'd be cool if we had 100 members once. Now
yeah.
we've got 4,200 members, and people are coming in and leaving all the time because it's something unique. No one's ever done it before. I love when I tell them all I'm doing on my videos, Cliff, is telling people how I do it.
Yeah,
They're
sure.
But they all of a sudden think I want to know how they do it. I have no desire to know how you do it. I don't want to know. I'm
Yeah.
telling you how I did it, made a living doing it, bought houses doing it, sent my kids to school doing it. That's all I'm doing is sharing my experience, strength with you. I'm just telling what I learned. I don't want to know what you know. I'm not here to argue with you,
Yeah.
even though they all want to argue. I don't care how you do it. I
Isn't
really
it
don't.
isn't it isn't it funny? I think the listeners will find this like the inside part of social media interesting on this, like at least in the outdoor space. People think they respond to some of my posts, Dave, as if I'm like a religious person trying to convert them. I'm not trying to convert you to how I do it. Like I'm just trying to show you how it's worked for me. You know what I mean? It's always like it's like these attacks of like, hey, like you're trying to get me to do it that way. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just showing you what worked for me. But it is interesting, man. It's amazing the volume. It's amazing the volume of content that you put out, man. So I got to give you props for that.
Yeah, it's my smart ass mouth, and I can just make a video about anything. And once I talk over it, they just pour onto it. It's crazy. It's so fun. I really, really enjoy it all the time. And my wife will tell me, "I'll put your phone away." But I'm looking for content everywhere I go, and then
Oh
I'll
yeah,
take it home and cut it up, and then I'll put it out there, and it's crazy. The number one watched video I have is how to tie up the boat. The
yeah,
thing's got
yeah.
70 million views. We've posted it like 20 different times, and I talk over it. It's just, I had no
The thing,
idea.
the thing wild about it, Dave, is I've seen the video several times and it pops up, and I would be lying if I told you that I'm surprised that it's so popular. Because there's something about it that's like kind of funny. It's like you're like showing something that makes sense. Like, oh, I think a lot of people walk. I mean, at least I'm speaking for myself, but I think a lot of people in this category, they walk down a dock, they see ropes all over, and then they see your video and they're like, oh, it would be kind of nice to actually know how to do it. I'm doing a figure, few figure eights and a couple half hitches and whatever works. But so it is kind of nice to know. Um, but it's the thing is I got to ask you this: do you find it difficult to find new content, like in your world? Yeah, I knew you were gonna say that because, dude, I feel the same way. It's there's so many things. I think if you have that mindset and you're active, I see you're fishing all the time and stuff, so things probably pop up all the time.
Yeah, I'm down in the marina or I'm walking around or I'm at a shipyard or wherever I'm at. I'm just like, oh my gosh. It You and I grew up like you grew up in the hunting world, I grew up in the fishing world, and we take so much for granted. But I'm like, man, if I don't video this, people will never see this. This is gold. And
Yeah,
it might not hit. And you know what's really strange? It might not hit this time. It might not hit next time. But I'll post it the third time and it'll get 2 million views. And the first time it got
yeah,
500 views. The second time it got like 1,000 views. And then we put it up the third time and all of a sudden, and it's something that you all have to understand. This social media thing is not easy. It is
no,
super gnarly and it'll really hurt your feelings bad because these companies, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, they turn the algorithm on or off whenever they want. So
yeah,
you don't know when it's going to go. But if you're a weak person and you didn't have a strong male figure in your life telling you that you're a baby and snap out of it, son, it will crush you. It'll
oh
crush you.
yeah,
It'll
yeah,
crush you. I Many times I wake up in the morning and go, huh. That video didn't, and then
Oh,
I'm
there.
like,
Yeah.
what am I worried about? I don't care how many views it got. Does that matter?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you get caught up in it, and it screws your head up big time if
Yeah,
you're
well,
not careful.
it has. I mean, it's an interesting business dynamic, right? Because it has obviously like financial implications for you, me, who we're doing this. But fairness is not. There's no fairness, particularly if you're in the outdoor space, hunting and fishing space on these platforms. Fairness is not. That's not even like a thing. They can just they can just they can kill all your distribution on a video, and like you see it in the graphs, right? Like, I mean, I'll see like some hunting thing, Dave, and I think this is interesting to or should be interesting to everybody that's out there. Like, I'll have some hunting thing take off, get millions of daily. It's getting 100,000 views, and literally in a split second, it goes to getting one view per week. Like, just boom, and it's like somebody complained too much about it. Somebody had a crybaby fit about it one too many times, and it's just like the distribution hose just turns off, and that there's just no fairness in it, and that's just it's interesting that way. But yeah, man, you got to be resilient to keep plotting along.
Yeah, the algorithm will mess you up big time, but I just keep
Yeah.
on cruising. I put out 3 brand new videos every single day, and I do my podcast Monday through Fridays at 12 o'clock, which is a lot for a 62
Oh
year old
yeah.
man, but I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. For sure it is, man. But hey, Dave, I've had an awesome time talking to you. Let's do another one sometime here in the next 3 or 4 months, and we'll just I'll just be I'm gonna do just a political we're just gonna do political podcast. So that everybody knows like the next Dave Hansen episode, we're just gonna talk about political stuff. Is that fair, Dave?
Well, yeah, because it's all hunting and fishing has gone totally political. So if you don't talk about it, you're just lying to your audience.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we'll do that. But hey, Dave, let everybody know where they can keep track of you, your website and all that stuff, and then I'll let you go.
Yeah, gang, check me out, Your Saltwater Guide, on all social media. And then over on Instagram, it's Your Saltwater Guide 62. But everywhere else, it's just Your Saltwater Guide on every single platform out there. And then we do our podcast Monday through Fridays at 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. We always bring in cool guests like Cliff. And then I put out 3 brand new videos every day all across all social media. And the the thing, it's just
Freaking wild, man.
amazing. Thank you all very much for all of this. And Cliff, thanks for letting me be on your show. I really enjoyed myself.
Yeah, of course, dude. I had a great time. Thanks, Dave.